Welcome back to Building Global Success, Mastering Change Management in GCCs, where we delve into the key elements of building successful global capability centers, GCCs, and the leadership strategies that make them thrive. I'm your host today, Ray Mead. I'm a consultant in project management, transformation and change, and I'm based in Hampshire in the UK. And I'm thrilled to say I'm joined today by one of our members at the Leadership Collective, Casey Dudley, Human Resources Director with Advanced Clinical out of Austin, Texas. Hi, Casey.
Hey there.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm just getting started in my morning. You're so lucky to be in your afternoon. But yeah, I'm glad to be here today.
That's right. I'm one tennis match down this morning, so raring to go. Fantastic. So Casey's going to share with us her experience of successful change programs that she runs to establish and grow her organization's overseas presence. So Advanced Clinical, the organization she works for, now operates across 16 countries outside of the US, which makes her perfect person to consult really on our topic of change management in global organizations, which is what we're talking about today. So getting straight into it, Advanced Clinical then, it's a research services and strategic resourcing organization. Building international capability has been a crucial part of the strategy, hasn't it, over the last few years? But you don't specifically refer to like GCCs as a term, do you? What do you call them?
That's right. So while we operate in many countries, we just kind of consider them part of our integrated solution. But in particular, when we're setting up a foundation, or what some people might call a headquarters or a GCC, we use the language center of excellence.
Okay. All right. So center of excellence makes sense, doesn't it? If that's what you're building kind of multi capabilities in a new location. And what kind of programs are they then? So the ones that you've been running recently, and I know we're going to talk in depth about one specific one. Can you just go over what you've been working on recently and what the strategic drivers for doing so?
Yeah, so kind of similar to our business support groups like HR, IT, legal, finance, they all operate in a center of excellence structure. So we applied that to our biometrics division, which we expanded into India. Really, the idea behind this is that the very specific work done in the Center of Excellence can be focused on there without the distraction of client meetings and other operational demands from the other business functions. So by operating a Center of Excellence, those team members are able to focus on the outcomes that are expected for that business unit. Using this language was really difficult at first, right? Center of Excellence can kind of seem intimidating to the rest of the workforce. And it challenged our existing team members quite a bit. So we really took them on this journey to understand the why behind that business decision, the benefits to the organization, and then how the employees and how the new work group would impact their day-to-day roles.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get into that, I think, a bit later. It's a really fascinating topic in terms of how you kind of approached that and managed it. But I'd imagine setting up one of these centers of excellence, it's not just a drag and drop kind of project, is it? It's a multifaceted program, so managed as a piece of change in its own right. How did you create the case for change in the first place? Was it an obvious change to make, or did you have to kind of, or did the organization have to convince everyone?
Well, it was an obvious change for the leadership team. So as a clinical research organization or a CRO, our competitors are already working in global capability centers and the centers of excellence. So this means they already had people working often 24 hours a day, or following the sun, as some call it. Additionally, our competitors were able to provide lower costs on their bids for work. And so we saw as a leadership team that in order to stay competitive in our market, we needed to make a change. So making the case for change came easy for the organization as a leadership capability. We had agreed upon the project scope, but convincing the rest of the organization, so our individual contributors and people who were already doing that role, was a little bit more challenging.
Okay, so not everyone agreed that was the right thing to do.
Right, right. So lots of people have worked in environments like this before, and they had some preconceived notions of what it would look like and what it meant for them. And so we had to work through those preconceived notions, listen to them, and certainly dig into what was happening at a step-by-step basis. And I think that some of the insights that line level managers brought and individual contributors about their prior experience working in Center of Excellence or Global Capability Center environments was actually really impactful for how we adapted our approach to opening up our Center of Excellence.
Okay, yeah. No, that makes sense. It's kind of defining what it looks like, what the horizon looks like, painting that in, I suppose, in a positive light as much as it can, whether there will be impact on different people, and then kind of working out, I suppose, then what needs to happen first. You can't see everything in a change program. You can't define everything in advance. You have to kind of work out, the goal at the end of it, what it's going to look like, the blueprint, if you like, of what you're building, and then kind of work on what you can see in the short term. So how did you work out what needed to happen first?
So I think it's important to call out that at my organization, we have a predefined change structure. So we all, every single employee at my organization takes some level of change management training. And so our everyone from our very first individual contributor all the way up to our CEO. And there's different levels of training that those people take, right? So an individual contributor spends about 1 hour in change management training. A leader spends about 3 to 5 hours in change management training. And then people like me who have the secondary job of change management practitioner, we spend about 10 to 12 hours in change management training. And so that's really helpful, right? Because we're all kind of speaking the same language. So by the time this project in particular became a change management initiative, we'd been talking about the Biometric Center of Excellence for nearly a year in our all staff meetings or our town halls. However, we really didn't know how employees were feeling about that. So our first step was to identify the most impacted individuals. So working with business leaders, who is going to experience this change in the most significant way. In this case, that was the team members in the existing data management team that would be working alongside our new team. We also identified others less directly impacted, such as other project team members and clinical monitoring, for example, and then the support functions like IT, HR, and finance. From there, we started working through the ADKAR journey for each group with a core focus directly on those impacted groups.
Okay, all right. So ADKAR, I mean, obviously specific terminology there around change management, and we should probably explain for people perhaps not so au fait with change management expertise, or what that is. Did you cover ADKAR in your change management training?
Absolutely. So all of our employees are familiar with the acronym ADKAR. For our listeners that may not know, ADKAR is an acronym that stands for the first A is awareness of the change. So instilling that awareness for the entire impacted population. Second is desire to participate and or support the change. The K is knowledge of how to change. The second A in ADKAR is the ability to implement the required skills and behaviors. And then finally, the R is reinforcement, so that we can sustain the change. So I would say it's important to note that going through the ADKAR journey needs to be done in order. So it's sequential. An individual will not know how to internalize the knowledge of how to change and transform that into an ability unless they're already aware of and desire, or at least minimally accept the change.
So this became vocabulary that everyone started to use in and around the program.
Absolutely. And as I tested how people were feeling about the change throughout the process, we continue to use this language. So using this model, we first realized that we needed to address awareness. So like I said, we've been talking about it for over a year, but did the employees know beyond that we were doing it? why we were doing it. So for directly impacted employees, it was important to work through each step, recognizing for a change like this, desire was never going to be fully achieved. They don't care, right? There's very little what's in it for me, but it's understanding the benefits to the organization, which hopefully therefore translates to benefits for them as an individual. And for the less directly impacted groups, we were able to be a little bit looser in that format.
Yeah, I find that you've kind of, if you can convince people that it's good for the organization, you kind of, you're halfway there. They kind of go along because they understand. And you mentioned that your competitors were already in India, so there's kind of like a, even if it doesn't sound like a desirable thing to do, like you say, it's something that, okay, well, this is what we're doing now, and therefore we'll start to go with the flow, and ultimately that's the kind of behavior you want, isn't it? I think it's Simon Sinek, isn't it, who says start with why, and it resonates quite well with change programs. You've got to really be clear about why we're doing this and what we want to get out of it, and then people will naturally kind of gravitate towards it, I find. And then once you're kind of up and running, another one, I don't know if you covered John Cotter in your change management training, but his kind of 8 steps to change management, and one of them is to form a guiding coalition. So once you've kind of established why you're doing it, you've got to have some kind of governance to the change and some kind of representation, etc. Did you was there clear ownership and accountability driving this change through?
Yeah, so we did cover Cotter in our change management training, and the bespoke model for change management that that my organization uses takes quite a few pieces from Cotter. So absolutely, that's important. We had very clear responsibility when it came to sponsorship of the change, so that highest level leader, their buy-in and what needed to be accomplished to fully accomplish the change. What was lacking in our process, though, was a strong project plan. So as part of that coalition, you need not only a sponsor, but a project manager or a lead. And in our case, we like to have a sponsor, a project manager, and a change manager. And then finally, we have those line managers, the direct people who will be talking to those impacted employees. And so a foundation is so important for overall success. So without that agreed upon project plan and without a formally assigned project manager, it was difficult to align change management initiatives to the project. So instead, a lot of the change management effort guided the project milestones instead of the other way around, which was interesting.
I'm quite interested in that because in my field of project management, transformation, etc., you find different approaches to this. You find project managers that have to kind of develop change management skills, or sometimes you find this where it's almost 2 separate disciplines. You've got project management and they're all over there with their schedules and the WBSs and risk logs, and then you've got the change management department and they're all about engaging people and things. And certainly, depending on the industry, depending on the organization, we're seeing sometimes the two more gravitating together as you look towards the future and automation comes into the workplace more. There's a strong driver for ordinary project managers, I suppose, to adopt more change management approaches in order to be successful. So, and your organisation, you've got them separated, have you? And you find that kind of works quite nicely in terms of what people are responsible for. And
yeah, so at my organization, we have a lot of project managers, but they're focused on clinical trial projects, not on organizational projects. For organizational initiatives, we only have 2 actual project managers, and we have a lot of projects. And so what we did instead, so those 2 individuals have attended the change management practitioner training. They are they have the same secondary job I have as change management practitioner, and are able to implement those in the projects that they're working on. However, based on their skill set and the needs of the business, they're primarily assigned to technical rollouts, so new software and new processes related to that. And so when it comes to a change like entering into a new country, it's not in scope for those project managers. And so instead, what we look at is another team member who is knowledgeable about that change and about the project to lead the project management function. And so we're a small, lean team. We have about 800 internal employees. And so, and most of those work on clinical trials, and which is obviously our primary effort that we're working on. And so I have been a part of a change management initiative at my organization where the project manager was also the change manager. And I actually think that worked beautifully. It's one of our most successful projects that we've conducted in the past year.
Mm. Yeah. So there's a message there, isn't there, to people working in perhaps project management that, with the advent of AI and things coming in the future, a lot of the more traditional project management skills, it's going to free up a lot of time for the average PM, and there's going to be more emphasis, rightly so, I think, on engaging the stakeholder environment, driving the change, and all of those things. So it's definitely a skill for people to develop.
Yeah, it's the people piece of the project, right? So how are the people impacted by this project, and then managing that piece of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Talking of impact, you mentioned before about looking at the impact of the program on employees, etc. Did you experience any attrition during the change? Did you there was obviously resistance, but did that lead to any kind of attrition that was unexpected or undesirable?
So it's hard to say right now. So the feedback we've received so far and during the change process was that quality can diminish when moving to a center of excellence model. And they also kind of feared that they would be replaced by the new team members. So we did address those concerns in group forums and with direct line managers leading the conversation. And the rest, kind of needs to be proven with time. So this change, our first new hire started in November of 2024, and at the time of this recording in January of 2025, we're just about 9 to 12 weeks out from that first hire. So I think time's going to tell how successful we were in limiting attrition. And one thing that we did to address that is offering key talking points to our leaders about that expansion so that they can utilize that as a consistent message. As I don't want someone to hear something from their manager and then come and have a one-on-one conversation with me and I tell them something completely different. So we're really working on that piece. And then finally, we are working through helping our existing team members grow professionally by giving them the opportunity, if they want, to mentor new employees. And so we're trying to reestablish and assert the impact and the importance that our existing team members have. And that's what those are some of the steps we're taking to try and limit that attrition. But right now, I really think it's too early to tell if this change really impacted that measure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's again, it's often linked to, I find, how much kind of agency people feel that they've had in the change as well. Using things like group forums that you mentioned, focus groups for help, for planning collaboratively. So, for example, if I'm leading a change initiative, if it's an area that I know very well, I kind of know where it's going, and I kind of know the outcome that I want from a planning session. But nobody cares. Frankly, it's not my change. It's the organization's change, and it's my stakeholders are paying for it. They're going to be using it. They're going to be involved in it. They're going to be driving it. I'm just managing it. So I have to remember that, if I'm facilitating those sessions, I may know what I want to come out of it, but it's got to come from them. So it's more of a facilitation exercise, and the more that people then input, and the more that you kind of I suppose give them the chance to set the direction while nudging them in the right way, the more they feel part of it, and the more they will get involved in things like mentoring and things. The more they feel that they've got that kind of ownership of the direction.
Oh, absolutely. And one measure, or one step I took, was utilizing it's actually our employee recognition platform, Achievers, has a feedback tool. We hadn't used it before. We typically use our HRIS for employment engagement surveys. And so I used the feedback tool in our recognition software to allow employees to anonymously share where they were at in their ad card journey, and then also to share any comments that they had. And it truly was completely anonymous, as frustrating as that can be to the change manager. And so I wasn't surprised by the things I was hearing. To your point, right? I had things that I was anticipating I would hear from the employees. But that doesn't mean that they don't still want to say those things and have the opportunity to say their concern out loud, whether it be anonymous or in an open forum where they're talking to their leader. And by capturing those comments, we were able to adjust our communication plan to address their concerns. And so I believe that the employees heard us then directly talking to them instead of building communication plan based on my preconceived notions. They heard me answering their questions that they submitted.
Yeah, very important. As I say, and I say this if I'm mentoring or coaching, project managers or anyone involved in transformation, don't disappear into the basement and produce all your plans and then suddenly emerge and go, ta-da, this is what we're doing, everyone. Because again, everyone will feel like it's something being done to them rather than something that, you're doing collectively as a whole. Excellent. Good to hear about it. Thanks very much, Casey, for today. And I'll talk to you again very soon.
Great. Talk soon.
So once again, thank you for sharing your expertise, Casey. Your insights on how to ensure the change aspects of building GCCs and centres of excellence and making sure that everything is managed smoothly will be incredibly valuable, I know, for our listeners and the organisations, any organisation seeking to build strong, integrated global teams. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe or leave a review and share it with others. You can also find mine and Casey's LinkedIn profiles in the show notes if you want to connect with us, either of us directly, which we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode where we continue exploring leadership and global growth in the world of GCCs.